Here we are at the BYU track in Provo, Utah. We just had our first snowfall of the year last night, so I thought it'd be a good day to come out here and let you see the beauty of the newly fallen snow while we have a talk about how we might modify our training as we go through the decades to make sure we can stay healthy, but also be training, racing, performing in a way that will still be exciting and motivating to us. Let me share with you the story of where my running began and where I am with it today. We lived in England when I was young. I was born there. We moved when I was 9 years old to California, and all I knew was tennis. That's all we did. It seemed like every day at the tennis club playing and really enjoying it. But at the end of my sophomore year, tennis season had ended and track was still going for a few weeks. So I went out to watch my friend Ed run a 2-mile race. When he was done, he comes running up to me and says, "Ian, we need you for the relay." So I said, "Well, Ed, I'm not on the team. I can't do that." He runs back down, runs back up, throws a uniform at me and says, "Now you're on the team. Come on, let's go." So I ran this relay, and I don't have any memory of how poorly or well it went. I just remembered thinking that was really fun. So I went to Coach Johnson and said, "Do you mind if I do the last few weeks of track?" And he said, "Sure, what do you run?" I said, "I don't know, I've never done it before." And he said, "Well, let's have you try the 800. No one else wants to do it." And at the time, I had no clue why nobody else wanted to do the 800, but I said, okay. And I ran my first 800, and it was painful, and I started realizing this is why people don't enjoy this race so much. But the next week, I ran a little bit quicker, and then a little quicker the next week, and then the season ended. But I got really excited about trying to figure out this race and how to get faster and faster in it. So I stayed with the 800 through the rest of high school, and then here at my time at BYU, where I ran all my years, mostly running the 800, followed by a 4x400 relay. And I really came to love that race, the intensity of it, breaking it down into pieces. I normally, at least the second lap, had it broken down into 50-meter marks where I would have a certain strategy that I'd go for. I'd either try to make a move and have others respond, or based on what others were doing, try to respond there. And it became this physical, emotional, intellectual kind of race that just got me really excited about being out there and doing that every single time. From there, I finished and did some further schooling, ended up back here teaching at BYU, and kept wanting to race the 800. So I kept training like that. But then in around 2006, Josh McAdams was running really well. He was one of our steeplechasers. He graduated and was starting to run professionally and had no one to train with late in the summer because track season was done for NCAA. And at the time, he was the only steeplechaser still competing, going into USAs and World Championships or Olympics. So I just trained with him. Thought it was really fun. But then one day he said, "Are you coming to the long run on Saturday?" And I said, "Josh, that's 15 miles. I can't run that far." And he said, "Yeah, you can. Just come do it. It'll be fun." And that didn't sound like my idea of fun, but I thought I might as well try it. So I got out there. We did our 15-miler. It gradually progressed in pace till the last few miles, but I thought, I'm close enough to the end. I'm going to stick in and finish this thing. And when we were all done, I was wiped out and exhausted for the rest of the day, but realized that went pretty well. I'm pretty good at this long stuff, and started thinking maybe I should consider doing a marathon. I was 35 at the time, and we've got Coach Eyestone here as our coach. He'd been in the Olympics twice for the marathon, and I thought I'm going to ask him for a program and see if he can get me ready for a marathon next year. Here in Utah, the St. George Marathon is one of the premier, oldest ones in Utah, really exciting. A lot of people really wanting to get down there and doing that race every year. So I thought I'll sign up for that one. So at 36, I did my first marathon. Coach got me trained well for it, and it went really well. But my plan was run the marathon, see how well I can do, and call it quits after that. Go back to running other distances. So I finished, I got 2:23:02, I think was the time, and was happy with that and had no plans of any more marathoning. But a few weeks after it was over, I thought of the little mistakes that happened in the race. There were 3 of them that I could take note of, and thought maybe I should do another one in a couple of years. I took a year off of marathoning. It was so exhausting and draining, emotionally, physically, everything. And I just didn't want to go through that training block again. But those 2 years later, from that first one, went down to St. George again, a little more prepared. Coach Eyestone had shifted my training a little more towards a true marathon program. And that one went great. I ended up actually winning that day, 2:22 something, or maybe it was 2:21. But that got me excited, and I also had someone else that was doing some marathoning that I was able to get some of the training with, which made it easier to handle going through that training cycle. I took another year off of marathoning and then got back to it. This is when Jared Ward was starting to do his training as a marathoner. So I had someone to complete all the training with, and it became fun and exciting, and I just wanted to do that marathon year after year, mixed in with Boston Marathon came a bit later, but those 2 marathons are the ones that I found the most excitement of completing. First thing to think about is what we might do in terms of adjusting the workouts. So our typical training program here is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or what we call recovery days, just putting in the mileage, getting some blood flow and healing, but also a bit of conditioning still occurs as we go through those runs. Tuesday and Thursday are the hard days of training, where we have workouts, something like 3x2 mile on Tuesday, and maybe 6 to 8 800s on Thursday. I'll share a collection of other workouts we do in a later video. Then Saturday is typically our long run, which in our marathon group is typically between 15 and 25 miles, depending where we are in our training cycle. Sundays, we just take off, rest and recover, get ready for the next week to go. Since my mid to late 40s, I started taking the second workout of the week, the Thursday, and adjusting that one to be about 2/3 the volume, or maybe drop the intensity a little bit, so that I wouldn't be so fatigued when I got to the Saturday long run, because that was a key component of being really well prepared for the racing. Now, you might not have that same kind of cycle that you go through each week, but if there's a time when you realize this run is suffering a bit because I'm not recovered from the previous one, then take that previous one and make that the one that you adjust to make it so that you're not quite so exhausted from it, and then you're able to handle the upcoming workouts through the rest of the week with good success on those. You'll be able to recover your body a bit more, which helps with injury risk, and that'll also help you be more recovered for the key workouts or long runs that are going to be the most important part of your training. Something else to consider in avoiding injury and also performing well is to include some strength training into your work that you do every week. We do 2 days a week in the weight room, where a lot of it is isometrics and things focused on keeping our tendons healthy, but there's also some good lifting that's also adding some strength and resilience to our muscles to help avoid any hamstring strains or other things that may be a common result of hard training, especially as our bodies are going through some changes in our lives. One other adjustment that may be helpful for you is to drop total weekly mileage. If you're finding your body is still not recovering, even with some other adjustments to the workouts, then dropping weekly mileage by a few percent and see how you go there. But as you do those changes, it's important to make sure that every run is done with a specific purpose, whether it's a workout or a long run, a recovery run, a short second run in the day, whatever you might be doing. Make sure that you know why you're doing those runs. Otherwise, you may just be wasting your time and effort there. Even the recovery runs do have a good purpose. There'll be some blood flow, there'll be some healing of the body as you get your heart rate elevated, with a little bit of performance gains through cardiovascular, since you are elevating your heart rate. But they don't need to be very quick. They just need to accomplish that purpose. The workouts you should put the right intensity and efforts into, and the long runs need to be at a pace that's going to challenge you while not wiping you out, making it so the upcoming week is not effective. So consider the purpose behind every run that you are setting out to do. Once each training cycle is over of marathon, typically I do this with the St. George Marathon and sometimes have a race a few weeks after that. But then I go into a training block where I spend 6 to 8 weeks of just running with the 800-meter runners, working on speed, strength, and power. It's exciting and fun to have some variety, but I believe that also helps with bone density, tendon health, muscle health, and will keep some of the speed and power that seems to be lost a bit as we go through the years of life and aging. There are muscular changes that are hard to overcome. So mixing in a few weeks every year something with some speed and power will help extend that longevity of your running career. The other part that's really exciting and fun is having people to do it with. I hope you have some training partners that you can get excited about showing up and being with each day. And as you're doing hard workouts, you're able to motivate each other. Even when you're racing, even if you're not with them at the time. I remember one time being in the Boston Marathon, the first time Jared Ward and I had done it, and we were both really struggling in the last few miles. I couldn't see him, he was so far ahead, but there were some thoughts where we remembered some things we'd been talking about with each other that we somehow were motivating each other, just thinking about what we'd experienced together and preparing for this, that helped us still push as well as we could through to the finish of the race. So take those motivations, use them well, adjust goals if necessary, but still do all you can to find excitement and keep running as a part of your life.